Oh, they're two of my,
And one over here.
yes.
We got a,
Oh, I see, so you move.
yeah.
Yes. Wrong way.
You can go in.
Oh, yes. Oh, I wondered where they were. Oh. You know, Winifred Shantz bought a lot of mine, and when she died, a lot of her work came in here. But, oh, that's lovely. Gosh, what I just can't believe it.
25 years ago, a brand new museum dedicated to showing contemporary ceramics and glass was founded in Waterloo, Ontario. It took a village to make it happen, to scrape and scrounge, but two visionaries stand out: Anne Roberts, a University of Waterloo professor of fine arts, and Win Shantz, a local philanthropist and ceramic enthusiast. It started out as a grassroots project. Raffle tickets were sold and bake sales were held. But the outcome was something that not only ended with an impressive building, but also cultivated a community. And Anne and Win were a kind of superhero duo that were always ready to fight for the arts.
One of those very important early contributors to the gallery is Anne Roberts. She was a part of the gallery when the gallery was only an idea. Her work, along with Winifred Shantz, her advocacy and her just tireless work to get this gallery in this city is something that we need to celebrate today, particularly as part of our 25th. And we're standing here with a grouping of her objects. I think it's important to acknowledge that she was first and foremost an artist. Her core of her being is an artist. She was also a teacher and a champion of the gallery, but I think ultimately we need to pause and celebrate her as an artist. So it's important to stand next to these works. And it's also important to acknowledge that Anne was a very provocative artist. Yeah, I would say that Anne is still a really vital force in terms of how the gallery thinks of itself, right? She's a part of our identity. I sort of think of Anne whenever I'm building an exhibition, and I wonder what she'll think of it. And there's this great, again, when I'm working as a curator, it's about sort of honoring those early voices and pointing to the future. And I think Anne is capable of that as a person, of sort of looking back and forward. So that makes her a really a person we're celebrating, right? She's still vital, she's still exciting, she's still interested in contemporary work, and she's at openings, and she's talking to young artists, and she's just engaged and excited, which we all want. Her energy is great.
In addition to teaching at the university and setting up their ceramic studio, Anne also co-founded the Waterloo Potters Guild. Every time I turned around when we were making this film, I found more evidence that Anne was a kind of glue that held everything together. She even made the local ceramic store happen.
Well, the first time I met Anne, I was a recently graduated art student, and someone suggested that I walk up to the university and find Anne Roberts. She was very welcoming, and she was also saying, "Do you know about the gallery?" And it was, at the time, it hadn't been built yet. It was just, I think, a twinkle in some people's eyes at the time. But she was already making sure that if I was going to settle in town and I was involved in ceramics, that I know about the gallery and get involved.
Win is the other chief player in this story. She and her husband Keith became key patrons and supporters of the arts. You see their names everywhere, and what I love most about them is that they thought locally before it was a well-coined slogan. They wanted to make Kitchener-Waterloo rich with culture, and they backed this up with serious money. It took vision, guts, and perseverance to imagine the future of this museum, and Win had all three in spades. Dozens, maybe hundreds of artists have benefited from her generosity. Artists need support, and Wynne and Keith answered that call.
Wynne was wonderful. She was very committed, obviously committed, very energetic, and very direct. Like, she would tell me if there was something that she didn't think was quite right. She wasn't trying to run the place, but she had her opinions, she had high standards. And as you know, we're standing here in the Keith and Winifred Shantz Gallery, but just so enthusiastic and so committed all the time. And one of the great stories that I remember was elevator opened, Wynne came out, as she did, into the office area and handed me a card with my name on it, to Bill Poole. So I opened it. It was a Christmas card, and inside it said, "To Bill and staff, I hope this helps," and included a check for $25,000. But that was the kind of generosity of spirit that she had. She funded the Winifred Shantz Award for ceramics every year.
But one of my questions was, why build a museum that specialized in ceramics and glass? Why limit the materials? Turns out, back in the 80s and 90s, there wasn't really a place to show craft-oriented work in Canada. It needed a home, and the pairing of ceramics and glass made sense. They were two of the key fire arts. But one of the byproducts was a museum that invited the world of fine arts and craft to sit at the same table. It facilitated an organic conversation that was ahead of its time.
I was a bit, at first, I couldn't quite understand this sort of fixation about, there seemed to be this huge thing about, craft as opposed to art. And, contemporary art is driven by concepts, and, craft traditionally is driven by artisanal kind of making. So I think the Clay and Glass Gallery has been very important for being a place where this kind of intermingling of traditional artisanal-based crafts with a more open, conceptually based art, contemporary art, has been very positive.
Things were rough for the museum at first. The government changed, funding fell through, and the community wondered if it even wanted this thing. By the early 90s, the situation was dire. But at the 11th hour, the city came through with last-minute funding. Two young Canadian architects, fresh out of school, were selected to design it, Patricia and John Patkow. They presented a ballsy building that flipped the idea of the so-called neutral white cube. Their design had personality. It had complex space and complex details, and it focused on materials, concrete, wood, and metal, a piece of Canadian architecture that went on to win a Governor General's Award.
Yeah, well, I think the original idea behind it was so that it didn't look too much like a polished gallery, so it looked a little bit more like the workspaces that we all work in. I think I might have done the first tour, and I was dressed all in professional stuff, and I was ready, and I had studied everything that I could read about the architecture. And one question that came up again and again on the tours was people, when I said, "Are there any questions?" would say, "When's it going to be finished?" Everyone wanted to know when the walls were going to be drywalled and painted white, and when the carpet was going to arrive for the polished concrete floor. And there was dead silence when I would say it's actually finished. Yeah, it never went over that well. It was tricky getting a buy-in for what it looked like.
So even though the building is an award winner, a real humdinger architecturally speaking, it can be a tough space to exhibit work in. It's got so much personality that it sometimes steals the limelight from the artwork, especially smaller works. But Sheila McMath, a graduate of UWaterloo and longtime local resident, has been at the gallery for years. She knows the space intimately, and she knows what works and what doesn't.
We're standing in a Governor General Award-winning building. It was built by John and Patricia Patkow, and it is celebrated as an architectural achievement. Architects come here to see the building. We have vaulted ceilings, we have exposed beams, we have poured concrete, we have reference to the industrial spaces where ceramics and glass are typically made. It has a sort of feeling of an artist's studio to some degree. It also has references to cathedrals, to like a secular kind of space that has a feeling of awe when you walk into it. So because of these details, it can sometimes be challenging to have the work have presence within the space. So my conversations with artists acknowledge the architecture, and we start to talk about the architecture as we're choosing work, because we want there to be a healthy relationship between the architecture and the work, and for ultimately the work to sing within the space. So it is a challenging space, but if as a curator I have those conversations early on enough, most often artists are really interested in engaging with those ideas and finding that balance.
So what does it take to swallow all of that criticism, to defy all the naysayers and haters who say it can't be done?
One thing that Anne and Wynne were both great at was showing up. They were at everything. I tried to go to everything, but I was never at anything that they weren't both already at. And Wynne had the freedom and the excellent eye to spot the racers in the room. That's what we refer to the pieces that are just, for some reason, sometimes it's hard to put a fine point on, but they're the best pieces. And she had the ability to snap them up, and so she did. So she amassed a fantastic collection. She went to, every opening. Anne and Wynne were at everything that was going on in the gallery.
Well, this whole thing of yes, we can do it. We'll do it somehow. When the Waterloo Potters thing, that came from, there was Anne and Wynne and 7 other potters, stepped up and said, we'll put some wheels in there, we'll start this pottery thing, and they all just did it, and it was because it was on offer, it was free, and they just thought, yes, let's just take this opportunity and run with it. So the gallery was kind of the same way, people thought that's crazy, that this isn't this kind of a town, we're not going to spend that much money. They just said, no, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it right. And Wynne said, in terms of this building, it's got to be beautiful, it has to be spectacular. We're not going to go, nickel and dime it, we're going to make it really special. Both Wynne and Anne were they both had that kind of spirit of, let's do it, and courage and a vision and energy. Let's just do this thing. We'll make it work somehow, for sure.
At 25 years, through good times and near-death experiences, the museum is still here, and it's a vital part of this community, and there's still lots of potential for growth. I'm not saying it's being all rainbows and unicorns, but the doors are open, and it looks like they'll be staying open. Not an easy feat.
There's a great social network there too that we really enjoy. That's part of the reason why I go to as many openings as I possibly can too, because there is a really nice community that has grown through the gallery.
But I've enjoyed every day that I've come in here for 8 years, and for me it's more than anything a tremendous honor to have been asked to serve in that role for that amount of time. I've loved every minute of it.
What do you think she would say?
I think Wynne would be thrilled to know that we're debt and deficit free, and that her, the support that she provided during those early years, and not right up till 2010, 2011 was used wisely. We like to say that we're good stewards of the funds that come our way, and I think we are. So I think she'd be really delighted that we turned the corner. And one of the things, just to mention, of when Aggie Bainan phoned me in February 2012, when Wynne had died, what we realized, all of us then, there was profound sadness in this place, because everybody, we're not only grateful to Wynne, but we loved Wynne. And what we sort of said to ourselves, that we now feel like orphans. And okay, our last surviving parent is gone. Now we're big kids. We have to make sure that we operate in a way that, even without Wynne's support, that would make her proud.
But the best part of the story for me is recognizing the impact that someone can have, recognizing the linchpins, and in this case, it was Anne and Wynne. That gives me hope. It makes me want to live up to that kind of legacy.
I'm really it's strange, but you don't know that you've actually got it, but it turns out that it's here. Oh,